Number 10. Wyatt Wingfoot. Wyatt Wingfoot is an ally of the Fantastic Four and a good friend and once longtime romantic partner of She-Hulk. Wyatt doesn't have any superpowers, but that doesn't stop him from helping his heroic allies out from time to time. Honestly, he is one of my favorite ships for She-Hulk when it comes to the major loves of her life. I love Wyatt Wingfoot. Wyatt is a member of the Kiwazi tribe and is also related to the Comanche tribe of the United States. Wyatt was preparing to become the new chief of his tribe after the death of his grandfather, but instead met the Fantastic Four and was compelled to leave and go on adventures with them. Later on, when his tribe was in peril, he and She-Hulk would return to try and help them from having their land and their resources taken. Also, I'm just gonna apologize in advance for any of these tribe names that I say wrong. I did look them up and I did try really hard, so sorry if I still got any wrong. If there's any notes that you have for me in terms of pronunciation, I would love them in the comments. Number 9. Captain America. When did this happen? Well, it hasn't happened yet, but Joe Gomez is a new character just announced and set to appear alongside some other newly introduced local community heroes who took up the mantle and the shield. This new story will be revealed in the special series United States of Captain America. Joe Gomez himself is an indigenous man and member of the Kickapoo tribe. He is a construction worker who uses his skills to help the members of his community at no charge. Joe's Captain America was created by Darcy Little Badger and David Cutler. He will make his first appearance in United States of Captain America issue number 3, which is set to release in early August. So make sure you check it out if you want to learn about all these cool new Captain Americas we're getting. I'm hyped. And friends, if you are loving this list as much as I am loving sharing it with you, please be sure to let us know by giving this video a thumbs up. It really does help us out here at the channel, so thank you for anyone that's done that. Number 8. Raven. From the Teen Titans, but also, instead of Prime Earth, belonging to Earth 1. This version of the character saw Raven reimagined as the daughter of a Navajo elder. Here, Raven is also a seer, and it is her visions that help to guide her to the Teen Titans. The Earth 1 version of Raven provides a really interesting reimagining of her character and gives us something unique, especially in regards to how she relates to her heritage and her family. While Raven of the Prime Earth continuity might shy away from her family ties, this version of Raven relies on them to give her wisdom and strength, and in a way also really celebrates them, which I love. Number 7. Red Wolf. Red Wolf is William Talltrees, who first appeared in Avengers issue 80. He is one of the heroes in Marvel history to have taken up the name of Red Wolf and fight with superhuman abilities and skill sets. Guided by the Cheyenne god of the hunt, known here as Owa-Yodata. William Talltrees, as the Red Wolf, has fought against the Super Skrull Kl'rt and for a time was a member of the Texas-based superhero team, the Rangers. And he's also fought alongside the Avengers and the Defenders. Number 6. Apache Chief. Apache Chief is such an iconic hero, I kinda had to include him, but he also has some major problems as well, so don't worry, we're gonna talk about that. Apache Chief first appeared in the Super Friends cartoon and was introduced as a hero who could change size at will by separating the words Nuke shook. He came during a time when diversity was trending in comics, the 1970s, especially Aboriginal diversity. In fact, our next hero on this list is also a character from that time period. This is one of the characters that we started off with in terms of representation. Although it should be noted, Wyatt Wingfoot from Marvel first appeared actually in 1966. Where Apache Chief is problematic though is that you can tell his character likely wasn't very well researched. The magical words that he uses to activate his powers, Nuke shook, likely sound familiar to most Canadians that are watching this. I mean, I'm Canadian and I immediately recognized Nuke shook for the name of the statues associated with northern tribes that are meant to symbolize unity. Apache Chief, however, has his root in the Apache tribe, which are often associated with more southern regions in the States. So having him say a Nuke shook doesn't really seem to make a lot of sense based on the region that he's supposed to be associated with. Apache Chief would later on appear in Young Justice, where we'd come to know a younger version of him and actually learn his real name, which was Ty Longshadow. This version of the character was skilled in the way of astral projection. So if you're wondering where we are with Apache Chief now, we have even a more modern version of the hero, which I think is a lot better. Number 5. Forge. Although I feel like it doesn't come up as often, Forge belongs to the Cheyenne and actually trained under a Cheyenne shaman known as Naze, gaining great mystical knowledge and power. However, after the Vietnam War, where he himself had served, Forge chose to turn away from the world of mysticism, focusing only on his talent with machinery and tech. His great mystical knowledge and skills would get used again later on in his life, but we'd only really come to know about them as readers after getting to know the character of Forge better. Forge is one of those characters that I really love for their diversity, because the diversity is there and it does get highlighted at times, but it's also quite effortless. He was created by Chris Claremont and John Romita Jr. Also, Chris Claremont gave us some pretty great characters. Can we just acknowledge? Pretty cool. Number 4, Dawnstar. Dawnstar is a cool hero whose background is a blend of indigenous origins and science fiction. She is an indigenous person, but from outer space! Hailing from another world known as Starhaven, initially her tribe, the Anasazi tribe, were abducted and brought to another world, the world of Starhaven. Once there, they were bioengineered to have wings that made them capable of interstellar flight without need for spaceships. Dawnstar is also a very skilled tracker, and this is actually her main superpower. She can track anyone in the cosmos, even from light years away. Dawnstar is a member of DC's Legion of Superheroes. So she's a superhero from the future. And from space. Number 3, Warpath. Warpath is connected to the Apache tribes and was born James Proudstar on one of their reservations located in Arizona. He and his older brother John were both mutants. John, in fact, ended up joining the X-Men but died on one of their missions, and this actually caused James to hate the X-Men and Professor X. Later on, he would join Emma Frost's Hellions instead, but eventually, Warpath would go on to become an X-Men himself. Warpath possesses various powers as the result of his mutant origins, including flight, superhuman strength, speed, and endurance. He is a skilled fighter and in more recent years has also been shown to have mystical abilities that were previously untapped. Number 2, Equinox. Equinox is a really cool Canadian hero who came from DC's Justice League United team. She belongs to the Cree tribe and in the future becomes a hero who is so well known that Dawnstar immediately recognized her and remarks that to her and many Aboriginal women that she knew, Equinox was actually an inspiration because, like I said, Dawnstar's from the future. Pretty neat stuff. Equinox is Miabin Martin, or Me for short, a teenage hero from Moose Factory Island, Ontario, whose powers are connected to the elements and change along with the seasons. And in case you're wondering if Moose Factory Island, Ontario is a real place, it is a real place. It's true. Number 1, Mirage, aka Dani Moonstar. Dani is also Cheyenne like Forge and Red Wolf, who came before her on this list. She is known for being a mutant and a member of the New Mutants in the comics. Her mutant ability allows her to connect with other people empathically and summon up illusions based on their greatest fears and desires. Initially, she could only really conjure images of a person's fears, but over time she was able to harness her ability to also summon illusions of their greatest desires as well, and then, even surpassing those skills, found herself able to conjure up neutral illusions from the minds of others that weren't attached to extreme emotional responses. Basically, she's now really good at going in your head and kind of knowing what you think and knowing what to pull out to manipulate you with illusions. Number 10, Batman. Batman might not have any superpowers to speak of, but he's such a powerful dude on his own, he really doesn't need them. I think that's why he has always been one of my favorite superheroes. He doesn't need superpowers to be super. His determination, focus, and commitment to what he believes in is what makes him an unstoppable force. Is he maybe the cause of a lot of the villains in Gotham? Did he maybe kind of create them by himself? Maybe. But when something even grander than his own baddies comes along, you'll definitely be happy to have Batman on your side. Also, despite not having superpowers, Batman has been a longtime leader of the Justice League, which just goes to show you how revered he is even among heroes who are on a god tier level like Superman and Wonder Woman. Number 9, Captain America. I can't believe Captain America is at number 9 on a most powerful list, but hey, here we are. There are honestly just a lot of powerhouse superheroes that hail from the United States between both Marvel and DC, possibly because they're both American publishers. could have something to do with it. Captain America is Stephen Rogers, who was born in and hails from Manhattan, New York, and is actually considered a second-generation immigrant, as his parents were actually both from Ireland and immigrated to the US. Captain America joined the Super Soldier program during World War II and became the only one who was able to undergo the transformation into a super soldier at that time, due to the death of Dr. Erskine. And friends, before we move on to this next spot, if you are loving this list and you want more powerful superheroes from the United States, because there's a lot, be sure to let us know by giving this video a thumbs up. Goodness knows there's a lot. There's gonna be so many people in the comments that are gonna be like, what about this person? What about this person? We're like, there's too many. They're so good. There's too many. Number 8, Invisible Woman. When it comes to powerhouses, Susan Storm really does take the cake for me on the FF, the Fantastic Four. Her powers allow her to turn invisible, but that's not all. She can also create powerful psionic force fields that are also impervious even to telekinetic attacks, protecting those behind or inside the barrier. And we don't just mean any telekinetic attack either, we mean Jean Grey, who is known for being an amazingly powerful psionic mutant and hero, and once attempted to get past Sue's shields using telekinesis and couldn't manage to do so. Invisible Woman is one of those characters who rarely gets hyped for her power, and so I thought now would be a good time to do so. Hype up Sue, she's great. While she often chooses to hold back, Sue could easily kill most enemies just by popping small force fields into their brain and then expanding them, and we've seen her threaten to do this before and kinda do it before too. Oh, it's so bad. Imagine if Invisible Woman was a villain, that would be dangerous. Sue Storm was born in Glenville, Long Island in New York and is a citizen of the United States of America. Number 7, Green Lantern. Although there are a slew of Green Lanterns from Earth, and more specifically from the United States, for the purpose of this list I'll be focusing on one of the most powerful Green Lanterns we've had from America, which is Hal Jordan. Hal Jordan for most people is probably still one of the first names that comes to mind when you think of the Green Lantern mantle. While he's had to face his dark side and the fear that grew within him when he was possessed and influenced by Parallax, Hal Jordan is still known for having some of the strongest willpower of not just the Lanterns of Earth, but also the Lanterns across the cosmos. Of course, as I said, there are also other Green Lanterns from the US who have also become synonymous with the Green Lantern moniker, and who have also been known for their great power, including Jon Stewart, Kyle Rayner, Guy Gardner, and Alan Scott, just to name a few. There's even more than that. If we do a part 2, there's definitely going to be some more Green Lanterns on there, because yeah, there's a lot of amazingly powerful Green Lanterns. Number 6, Swamp Thing. When it comes to the magical realm of DC, there are quite a few standout powerhouses, but among them is one hero that we don't often talk about on Top 10 Nerd, but who definitely deserves to be respected for the power that they wield. That is Swamp Thing. Swamp Thing is more of a magical avatar that represents something much larger than just the United States, the cosmic force known as the Green. It's true, but Alec Holland, who merged with the swamp to become Swamp Thing, was himself American. It is important to note that, so that makes Swamp Thing at least partly American himself, as while he's not really Alec Holland anymore, he still has Alec Holland's consciousness within him, with Holland becoming something new when the being known as Swamp Thing came to be. Of course, it also depends on what story we're talking about for Swamp Thing, because in some he's more Alec Holland and in others he's less Alec Holland, so yeah, kinda depends. And the continuity we're talking about. Number 5, Doctor Strange. Obviously we have to have some magic on the list, hence why we talked about Swamp Thing previously, especially considering that I think magic is actually one of the most powerful areas of the Marvel Universe, and overall various comic book publishers' universes as well, including obviously DC. Doctor Strange is probably one of the most powerful and most knowledgeable magic users we have within the Marvel Universe at least, and he is often known for holding the title of Sorcerer Supreme. Currently, he is dead in the Marvel Universe, but even that was something that kind of happened on his own terms. He found a way to return, but knew that, he couldn't, or rather, shouldn't stay, and so chose to let go and fade back into death after his murder was solved and the world was successfully safe once more. Magic is immensely powerful because if you have the skill and knowledge, you can pretty much do almost anything with it. As long as it's within the rules of magic, that is. Magic does usually have rules. Otherwise, it would just be crazy, it'd be too powerful. Number 4, the Flash. The Flash, I think, has always kind of been one of the most powerful heroes out there, because if you can go fast enough, a lot of other things become possible. Well, assuming you can go fast enough and, you don't suffer any adverse effects of going fast. You don't just like go up into flames or something like that. But in the DC universe, and when we're talking about the Speed Force and Flash, adverse effects don't usually come into play. So, whew, thank goodness. For this list, I'm going with Wally West, who is known for being an even faster Flash than the previous Flash, Barry Allen, Wally's uncle. Wally grew up in Central City, which, while fictional in the continuity, is located in the United States. Originally, Central City was actually said to be in Ohio State, but in more recent times it's been implied to be more in Missouri State. That's commonly where you see it now. Number 3, Hulk. The Hulk obviously has to make the cut for this list, considering that Bruce Banner is of course American and is known for being the strongest there is when it comes to his power levels. Well, the Hulk is known for that. I guess Bruce Banner isn't known for that. I mean, it's one of Hulk's catchphrases, so it's gotta be true. He's the strongest there is. It's just how it goes. Bruce Banner himself was born in Dayton, Ohio, and would grow up to become one of the most famed theoretical physicists, specializing in the area of nuclear physics and gamma radiation. In fact, it is believed today that Bruce himself is the go-to person on Earth in the Marvel Universe when it comes to gamma radiation, and it's implied in the comics that basically no one knows more than Bruce on this subject. So not only do we have the powerful brains of Bruce Banner, but we also get the unstoppably powerful brains of Hulk, who is known for being notoriously hard to defeat in battle because of how tough and physically strong he is. Also, he can jump. Oh, he can though, he can jump pretty high. Number 2, Superman. While Superman might actually be Kryptonian from birth and an alien from another planet, he grew up in the United States in Smallville, Kansas. Once again, like the fictional cities of Flash's home, Central City, and Bruce Wayne's home of Gotham, Smallville is also a fictional place, a small town. Kal-El may be from another world, but his life and his loved ones are all here on Earth, and he grew up in rural America. And so I think that really makes him more American than Kryptonian deep down. After all, in both America and here in Canada, there are so many people from around the world who come to these nations and make them their new home, immigrating here and then becoming citizens. And that's part of what the American dream means to a lot of people. Superman himself is probably one of the most powerful superheroes in all of DC Comics. He can really do it all, and back in his earlier days, now technically relegated to another continuity, he really could do it all, as his power set would actually fluctuate based on the powers needed for him to solve the problem and save the day in the story. Now we don't have that, but he's still crazy powerful. Number 1, Blue Marvel. Blue Marvel is really one of the most powerful heroes we have over at Marvel Comics. While we don't talk about him as much, he definitely deserves to be acknowledged on this list. Blue Marvel is Adam Brashear, who is American and was born in Chicago, Illinois. I am happy that we gotta have someone rep Chicago on this list as well, as it is a massive city and I believe it deserves some love. Also, I was a little worried that all my most powerful US heroes for this list, especially from Marvel, might end up being from New York. There are a lot of New York-based and born heroes in Marvel Comics, probably because Marvel's main office for so long was located in New York City. Adam Brashear has some explosive powers, as his power set is based in antimatter. His ability to absorb antimatter and therefore his unique physiology give him a long list of powers, including cosmic awareness, super strength, super durability, being nigh invulnerable, matter manipulation, and antimatter manipulation. That's his whole thing after all. Oh, and he also just happens to be a genius as well outside of his superpowers. And he also served in the US Marine Corps, so he also definitely knows how to fight, if he needs to fight. Number 10, Nuke. Frank Simpson had a pretty crazy childhood and an even more insane adulthood. He ended up being raised by Project Homegrown after the death of both of his parents. Later on, he ended up serving in the Vietnam War as a Black Ops agent. While there, he was kidnapped, tortured, and brainwashed into becoming a machine of death. When triggered with the phrase "no VC," Simpson would go off and kill everything in sight, giving in to his brainwashing. No VC was a phrase used by civilians during the Vietnam War to indicate that they were non-hostile, so you can imagine how awful that was. Nuke went on to become a villain and a hired mercenary, often working in tandem with other villains. Oh, and he also became part cyborg. He was originally from Ohio, like most other cyborgs. Just kidding. I don't know any other cyborgs from Ohio, sadly. All of my friends from Ohio are just people. Number 9, Maxwell Lord. Maxwell Lord was born to a wealthy family in Marblehead, Massachusetts. He became possessed with power and leadership roles from a young age after his father took his own life. His father had discovered that his weight loss pills had been giving people cancer. Seeing her now deceased husband as weak, Lord's mother made him promise to keep power out of the hands of those who did not deserve it and were not strong enough to wield it, like I guess Lord's father, which is pretty harsh. This led to Maxwell growing up and wanting all the power for himself, becoming power hungry. He used his psionic abilities to influence others into doing what he wanted, and in this way, combined with his smarts, was able to gain influence and power. He has been the head of Checkmate and even at one point had the Justice League under his power, using the Heart of Darkness to control their minds. Number 8, Juggernaut. Kane Marco is Professor X's evil stepbrother, though when you understand their history, it's easy to see how he became inspired to become a villain. Charles Xavier became Kane's stepbrother when Charles's mother married Kane's father. The two were at odds almost right away, as it was obvious that Kane's father actually preferred the gifted young Charles to his own natural-born son. Harsh. This caused Kane to be jealous of Charles, and he would often pick on him. His father, however, was not pleased with his son's behavior, and as such would end up punishing Kane, behaving cruelly towards him. When Kane's father died, Kane found out about Charles's telepathic gift, which he was already somewhat suspicious of. And knowing about Charles's gift and believing that Charles had intentionally gone through his mind before led Kane to officially only see Charles as an enemy moving forward. It was this divide between the brothers and Kane's envy of Charles's special gift that eventually led Kane to accept the Gem of Sidorak and become Juggernaut. Number 7, Red Hulk. Thaddeus Ross grew up in a very proud militaristic home. It's actually the military in him that originally drove him to be at odds with the Hulk, who he saw as a national threat. Even continuity-wise, before Ross's conflict with the Hulk, when he met Banner, who was working on the gamma radiation bomb, which would later cause Banner's transformation into the Hulk, Ross didn't even like him then. He thought he was too weak for not wanting to make the gamma radiation as powerful and as deadly as possible, and was dismayed to find out that his daughter had taken an interest in Banner. General Ross, of course, wouldn't just go on to be a militaristic and obsessed Hulk villain. He would later become a Hulk as well himself, eventually becoming the Red Hulk. Number 6, Carnage. One of the most notorious serial killers, Cletus Cassidy, is also an American citizen who was pretty much born a bad egg. He killed his grandmother at a young age and was sent to an orphanage where he continued his killing spree. Once he was an adult, he eventually was caught and arrested and charged with 11 cases of murder, which according to Cletus wasn't even all of the murders he'd committed. Cletus ended up bonding with Venom's symbiote offspring Carnage in jail, which bonded to his blood and allowed him to become one of the more crazier and possibly the most dangerous of Spider-Man's supervillains. And when given a ton of power, like we saw during the Absolute Carnage event, this also makes Cletus and his symbiote pal one of the most deadly supervillains period in the entire Marvel universe. He's in the big leagues now. Number 5, Joker. The only reason Joker is so low on this list of supervillains is because I wasn't really sure if he is a guaranteed American. He obviously is a major criminal, and it's likely that none of the identification that he does carry, if he carries any, could be considered legitimate because, I mean, he's the Joker. Can we trust that ID? I don't know. Does it just say the Joker? We don't know a lot about his past before becoming the Joker. There are a handful of stories that seek to explain this, but nothing has ever been written in stone. We can, however, safely assume that he is, at this point, at least American, having mostly lived and operated in Gotham for, well, as long as we've known him. Joker, as an American villain, is very rebellious. In many ways, he seems very anti-America in terms of establishments and legal systems that are meant to be the pillar of America's inner workings. But he obviously does not seem averse to American culture or pop culture. In fact, when he teams up with the Red Skull in a DC/Marvel crossover, he ends up turning on him the moment he finds out he was a World War II German soldier. I may be a criminal lunatic, he says, but I'm an American criminal lunatic. He's owning it. He's like, I'm a proud American criminal. Number 4, Dr. Octopus. Otto Octavius could have ended up becoming an American hero instead of a villain, given the right circumstances, if just a few things had gone a little bit better for him in his story. He was raised in Schenectady County in New York State. His parents were both quite poor. His father was cruel to him and tried to encourage violence in little Otto when he was being picked on in school, but his mother dissuaded Otto from reacting violently, instead encouraging him to stay calm and focus on his studies. After Otto's father passed away while he was in college at MIT, he really began to shine, graduating top of his class with honors. However, his mother's overbearing attitude would eventually get in Otto's way when he fell in love. Faced with a personal tragedy, the loss of the woman that he was in love with and his mother proved to be a great distraction to Otto, who is now working in the field of nuclear science, not a field you want to get distracted in. This led to an accident that would change Otto forever, turning him into the mad scientist and villain, Dr. Octopus. Number 3, Poison Ivy. Pamela Isley is just one of the best supervillains out there in my opinion, and she just so happens to also be American. She is a brilliant mind whose love of plants turned deadly when she ended up being poisoned but survived, and found herself gifted with immunity to toxins and a poisonous touch. Dr. Isley became Poison Ivy, an eco-terrorist who fights for the plant life of not just America, but of the entire world, and aims to terrorize anyone that opposes her or that would hurt the plant life of the earth. Pamela is usually depicted as being from Seattle, Washington, which is where she grew up and studied before starting her career as an eco-terrorist in Gotham. Number 2, Norman Osborne. Norman Osborne is the ultimate capitalist, and what's more American than that? The thing is though that Osborne doesn't usually represent the pros of capitalism. More often than not, he uses the system to get his own way and help him work to destroy Spider-Man, who despite everything, he remains obsessed with. So he's more about the cons of capitalism. At least, he remains obsessed with Spider-Man, we should say, when he's sane enough to remember that he actually is Norman Osborn, of course, and that, he has that agenda. Osborn is, of course, from New York City. Number 1, Lex Luther. What's more American than literally being the president of the United States? Well, former president anyways. The interesting thing about Lex Luthor versus Superman is that both represent different ideals of America. Superman is a kind, honest, hardworking country boy with a heart of gold, but is also an alien, someone who came to the States from another planet and had to adapt and adjust to life on Earth. His homeworld was destroyed and he was raised in America from a young age, but he's originally an alien. Kind of a fitting story since both the US and Canada are countries built and established by, in many cases, immigrants. People who came from other British colonies who settled here and then kind of decided that they wanted to be independent from the British and establish their own ruling government and create their own country. Lex, on the other hand, represents the capitalist side of America. He is a brilliant mind, a businessman who won't stop until he gets what he wants. He's somewhat selfish and egocentric, but when his needs align with others, he is willing to team up and even switch sides. At least for a while. Despite the fact that Superman and Lex ended up growing to become such different people, they are both small-town boys who were raised in Smallville, Kansas. Kind of neat to think how they represent two very different sides of what sometimes feels like the same coin. They are perfectly matched enemies for one another because they are polar opposites, but both patriots, both fighting for what they believe is right for America. Lex to himself is definitely a hero. I mean, every supervillain to themselves is the hero of their own story.